Cher icon, trailblazer, survivor. She spent over 6 decades defying time, critics, and every expectation placed on her. From the moment she appeared on television with Sonny Bono, her voice, deep, unmistakable, defiant, told the world she was not like the others. She wasn't just a singer. She wasn't just an actress. She was a force, a brand, a revolution. But now, as the curtains begin to slowly fall on the life of a legend, what she's leaving behind has caused more than admiration. It has caused tears. For years, fans saw the glitz, the Grammy wins, the Academy Award, the sold-out tours. But behind the scenes, Cher built an empire. Real estate, art, fashion, investments. Her fortune has reportedly grown to over $360 million. Yet it's not the size of the fortune that's shocking. It's what she decided to do with it. Sources close to the family say that her final wishes have left her loved ones stunned, and in some cases, emotionally shattered. Both of her sons, Chaz Bono and Elijah Blue Allman, have had complicated relationships with their mother. Public disagreements, emotional distance, years of silence, all quietly shaped the decisions Cher has now made regarding her estate. And while her wealth was hard-earned, her family may receive far less of it than anyone expected. Insiders reveal that large portions of her assets may go to causes she held dear: LGBTQ+ rights, Native American communities, and AIDS research, leaving her children heartbroken, not out of greed, but a longing for reconciliation that may now never come. Cher's fortune was never just about money. It was a mirror of her power, her pain, and the price of her choices. And now, with her legacy almost sealed, it's not just fans who are grieving, but her family too. Cher's story doesn't begin in wealth or privilege. It begins in struggle. Born Sherilyn Sarkisian in 1946 to a single mother in El Centro, California, Cher came into the world with dreams bigger than the small-town life she was born into. Raised on welfare, she watched her mother take on odd jobs to support the family, instilling in her a deep awareness of financial instability and a lifelong determination to never return to it. That drive carried her into the entertainment world, where she rose from backup singer to full-blown superstar alongside Sonny Bono in the 1960s. I Got You Babe wasn't just a hit single, it was a declaration of arrival. But when the marriage ended and the spotlight dimmed, Cher didn't crumble. She adapted. She became a solo icon, a Las Vegas headliner, a fashion muse, and an award-winning actress. Over the next 5 decades, she reinvented herself more times than most stars even get one shot. From disco queen to leather-clad rock goddess to Academy Award-winning actress in Moonstruck, Cher's ability to evolve became her most valuable currency. But behind that adaptability was a woman meticulously building wealth, not just fame. She purchased prime real estate in Malibu and Beverly Hills, invested in stocks, bought rare art, and secured licensing rights to her music and brand. Her Mediterranean-style Malibu estate alone, perched dramatically above the Pacific Ocean, is valued near $85 million. Multiple insiders close to the singer say she always took her finances seriously, not just to live lavishly, but to secure her future and those she loved. Yet, as her empire grew, so did the emotional distance from her inner circle. Fame demanded everything: time, presence, vulnerability, and it often came at the cost of motherhood. Her 2 sons, Chaz Bono and Elijah Blue Allman, grew up in vastly different orbits, and both have openly shared the emotional consequences of having a mother who belonged to the world more than to them. Cher, in interviews, has acknowledged these truths. She's admitted to missing moments, to struggling with connection, to being swept up in the chaos of a career that never paused. But even those admissions didn't prepare her family for what would come next. As Cher aged into her late 70s and early 80s, she began quietly restructuring her estate, protecting assets, defining beneficiaries, and deciding who would receive what. And according to those closest to her, it was during this process that cracks turned into chasms. Her decisions weren't just financial, they were emotional. For those expecting a fairy tale inheritance, what Cher left behind would instead force a reckoning with the past, with the wounds still open, and with the choices that fame demanded. The woman who had always seemed invincible was finally setting her affairs in order. But instead of comfort, her decisions would bring grief. not just because of what she left behind, but because of how she chose to leave it. And for her children, it was the beginning of a heartbreak far more profound than any fortune could fix. Cher's public persona, bold, fearless, always in control, has often masked the quiet ache of a mother who struggled to maintain closeness with her children. While the world saw her as an indestructible icon, behind the scenes, her relationships with her sons, Chaz Bono and Elijah Blue Allman, were unraveling in ways most fans never fully understood. Chaz, born Chastity Bono, was the child of Cher and Sonny Bono, and for years their bond was strong. But when Chaz began transitioning in the late 2000s, Cher, despite her progressive views and public advocacy, privately admitted it was a process that tested her emotionally. She struggled to reconcile the identity she had known for decades with the new one her child embraced. Though she later became a proud supporter of Chaz and the LGBTQ+ community, those initial years created a rift that never completely healed. Then there's Elijah Blue, Cher's second son, born during her tumultuous marriage to rock legend Greg Allman. Elijah's upbringing was marked by instability, substance abuse, and long stretches of feeling forgotten. He has spoken candidly in interviews about feeling like an outsider in his mother's world, one he described as glittering but emotionally distant. In 2023, tensions escalated to a shocking level when Elijah filed legal documents accusing Cher of attempting to place him under an involuntary conservatorship. His claim that she hired people to forcibly remove him from a hotel to send him to rehab against his will. Cher denied the allegations, stating it came from a place of love and concern, but the public dispute only deepened the perception that her family life was fractured beyond repair. Against this backdrop of strained relationships, Cher began laying out the terms of her will. Sources close to her claim she made decisions designed to protect her wealth from potential misuse. Specific trusts were reportedly created to limit direct access to cash, and legal clauses were installed to ensure funds could not be squandered. But what truly shocked those involved was the clear indication that the bulk of her estate may not go to her sons at all. Instead, charitable foundations, causes close to her heart, such as HIV/AIDS research, LGBTQ+ rights, and Native American advocacy, are rumored to be the primary beneficiaries. While noble in their mission, these decisions felt to her sons like a final rejection. According to an anonymous source, Chaz was brought to tears during a private family meeting when the documents were first discussed. Elijah, already estranged, reportedly viewed the decisions as confirmation that the emotional distance he had felt his entire life was now permanent and legal. For Cher, it may have been a way to preserve her legacy on her own terms. But for her children, it was the closing of a door that had already been barely open. These were not the tears of spoiled heirs denied a fortune. These were the tears of children who, despite everything, still longed to be chosen, still hoped for a final gesture of reconciliation. Instead, they were left with the sharp silence of a legal document that spoke louder than any goodbye ever could. And in that silence, the heartbreak took root. While most people spend their lives dreaming of building a legacy, Cher spent hers perfecting one, but not in the way her fans or family expected. To the world, her success was loud, visible, and spectacular. Multiple chart-topping albums, an Oscar win, iconic fashion moments, and stadium tours that defied her age and rewrote the rules of what a woman over 50 or 70 could achieve in show business. But in private, her legacy took a very different shape, one carved from solitude, control, and a deep-rooted need to guard herself from further pain. As she approached her late 70s and early 80s, those closest to her say Cher became more introspective, more spiritual, and more withdrawn. Her Malibu mansion, once filled with laughter, music, and industry insiders, grew quieter. She spoke more about her Cherokee heritage, began donating discreetly to Native American communities, and surrounded herself with spiritual advisors instead of business managers. Legal experts were brought in to craft a highly specific estate plan, one reportedly designed to ensure that every dollar reflected her values, rather than merely passing down wealth to her next of kin. But what startled insiders was how little of her legacy was left for her children. While both Chaz and Elijah were included, the details allegedly restrict their access in ways that imply distrust. clauses that delay inheritance until specific ages, trusts that require oversight, and language that echoes more concern than generosity. To some, it felt like punishment. To others, protection. Either way, it was clear that Cher, even in her final act, was still trying to exert control over the uncontrollable, her complicated past, her distant sons, and the inevitability of death. The emotional cost of these choices, however, rippled through her inner circle like a silent earthquake. Elijah, already struggling with addiction and estrangement, reportedly felt erased. Chaz, who had worked so hard to bridge the emotional distance with his mother, now faced the quiet realization that her wealth would not be a bridge, it would be a barrier. Beyond her children, even her longtime staff and close companions, people who had been with her for decades, were left stunned by how tightly managed the estate was. Some quietly praised her for protecting her life's work. Others admitted it felt cold, calculated, and lonely. Yet Cher was never one to follow rules. Not in music, not in fashion, and certainly not in family dynamics. She had often said in interviews, "I've had to be my own everything." And perhaps that belief bled into how she shaped her final wishes. It wasn't about revenge or bitterness. It was about maintaining power in a world that had taken it from her early on. Fame had given her riches but stolen connection. And now, with those riches finally being allocated, it was connection, not money, that everyone realized they wanted all along. But for her family, those doors may be closed for good. The legacy remains, but the emotional warmth that should have come with it may be gone forever. As the final notes of Cher's life begin to fade into the distance, what remains is not just her staggering wealth, but the haunting silence between what was said and what was left unsaid. Her story, on the surface, is one of unprecedented triumph. A woman who rose from poverty to become one of the most recognizable and enduring figures in music, film, and fashion. But beneath that triumph lies something far more complex. A woman who protected her independence so fiercely that, in the end, it may have cost her the closeness she once desired. Her decisions regarding her estate, decisions that left her sons emotionally wrecked, were not simply about money. They were about control, fear, protection, and perhaps even regret. Those who know her best say Cher never wanted to be seen as vulnerable, even by her own family. And yet, the choices she made in her final years revealed a woman wrestling with the ghosts of her past: absentee parenting, broken marriages, public scrutiny, and the scars of constantly having to fight for her place in a male-dominated industry. Her fortune, estimated at over $360 million, is now a vessel carrying not just dollars, but decades of emotional history. The homes, the investments, the jewelry, and the memorabilia, each item is soaked in memories that her children will now receive not with joy, but with a heavy heart. Chaz, who once spoke of wanting nothing but peace with his mother, now finds himself in possession of a legacy written more in caution than love. Elijah, who for years pleaded for reconciliation, now stands outside the gates of a mansion built not just with money, but with walls. And yet, in the quiet aftermath, there is still a strange kind of grace in what Cher leaves behind. Her fortune will fund causes that mattered to her deeply: LGBTQ+ youth programs, HIV/AIDS charities, Native American initiatives, all reflections of the battles she fought in silence. While her family mourns what could have been, others will be lifted by her final acts of generosity. In that sense, Cher's last message may not have been directed only at her sons, but at the world. This is who I am. This is what I stood for. Take it or leave it. For the fans who adored her, that legacy is enough. But for her family, especially her sons, it's more complicated. Their tears are not born from greed or entitlement, but from the quiet ache of distance that was never closed, the apologies that never came, the embraces that never lasted long enough. In the end, what Cher leaves behind is not just a fortune, but a fractured story, a bittersweet ballad with no final chorus. The world will remember her in sequins and spotlights. Her family will remember her in fragments and silence. And somewhere in the space between those two realities lies the truth of Cher, a woman who gave everything to everyone, except maybe the ones who needed her most.